Welcome to The Buck Stops Here, the official podcast of NotInHallOfFame.com, and I'm your host, Kirk Buckner, The Buck, the owner and the operator of NotInHallOfFame.com and the sister sites, the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame and the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It's Season 1, Episode 20 of the Hall of Fame show, and Evan Nolan and I take a look at a few key moments in the last week. There actually was a pretty quiet week, relatively speaking. We look at a few passings, that of Bob Watson, former Houston Astro and New York Yankees executive, Phyllis George, a trailblazer and former host on the NFL Today, which was the pre-show on CBS's NFL package programming, and Shad Gaspard, former WWE superstar who died tragically at the age of 39. We had a little bit of a project today, which is sort of the big core of what we looked at. And we looked at all the retired numbers in sports, in the big four sports, and just looking at a few who got it wrong. People who had their number retired and maybe they really shouldn't have. Thanks for tuning in, and we hope you enjoy the show. Evan, how are things in the big city?
They are, this has been one heck of a terrible May here. Not just COVID stuff. It's been we've had 2 nice days the entire time. Maybe the city's sad that the Cubs aren't playing, but it's probably our weather's been significantly worse than yours, I'd imagine.
Yes, yeah. Well, my dad, who's still living in Canada, in Hamilton, Ontario area, he always had a theory that the weather never gets good until the hockey season's over. And now since everything's all messed up, he says it's just horrible because he's having the same thing that you're having. I think he's maybe talked about 2 nice days, really this entire spring. It's like a spring that isn't.
Yeah, that's similar to my theory as to why the Red Sox, Yankees, Cubs, Tigers are so popular. Because those places, it's cold. When the Red Sox and Tigers and Cubs and Yankees are playing, it's warm every single day. And when they stop playing, it's cold until they start playing again. I've always thought that baseball in the North is so popular because anytime there's something warm that they play every day, those teams are playing. Mm-hmm. That's sort of similar to what your dad believes.
Of course, my dad also believes a lot of interesting things. And since I know that he never listens to anything I do that's sports-related, I can say this.
Well, speaking of semi-sports related, I don't know if you've heard one of the only good side effects of COVID-19.
Okay, what would that be?
You ready for this? Are you familiar with the 1981 Burt Reynolds classic, and Dom DeLuise, excuse me, I want to leave him out, Cannonball Run?
Oh, yes, I am. I love that movie.
So, Cannonball Run is not just a movie, it's an actual race. Mm-hmm. Across the country, right? Mm-hmm. And the record apparently used to be 29 hours. It has been broken 5 times in the last 7 days. It's down under 26 hours. Why? Because there's nobody on the roads.
No, I've always sort of thought...
people have...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, so people have been like, hey, there's nobody on the roads. We might as well break the record. There's social distancing, certainly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's apparently sub 26 hours now. I think it's New York to L.A., right?
From New York to L.A., yes. Although Wilt Chamberlain used to claim that he drove that from Philadelphia to L.A. in 24 hours.
It's about 2 hours away from New York, so sure.
Cannonball Run, though, in my opinion, as much as I love that movie, is probably has the biggest mess up in all of sports films.
Really?
Yeah, in my opinion. The biggest screw-up that makes absolutely no sense. And I'm throwing that even as much as I love the Rocky series, because Rocky would have been technically knocked out in every one of those films. He wouldn't have won anything, but whatever. That's fine. I can overlook that. But, so you're a connoisseur of the great Cannonball Run, I'm guessing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
it's been years since I've seen it, but yes, I've seen it at least 3 times. Okay,
so in the first act, or at the end of the first act, they're spending quite a bit of time showing everyone leave. What was it? New Jersey, I think, where that was. Doesn't matter. I think it was Jersey. Their hotel, and everyone clocking out, establishing that everyone left at a different time.
Mm-hmm.
Who left last? Burt Reynolds left last. Now, at the end of the film, as they're all sort of like racing on foot to get there, Captain Chaos, in an act of stupidity, sort of like ran to save the cat. Or dog, I forget.
Right.
Well, which allowed, nobody even remembers who won. It was Adrienne Barbeau.
Okay.
And her partner, whose name escapes me because I don't think she ever, in that all-star cast, that might have been the only one who I never heard of before or since or after. Regardless, despite that act, Burt Reynolds still could have took that card, ran to the end, and still won because you're doing on a time lapse.
Right. Yeah. Because he came last. It never even occurred to me. But again, I haven't probably watched it. I've watched it a bunch, but I haven't watched it since my 20s, which was depressingly long ago. I never thought about that.
No, that's one thing that I always have that same drunken observation every time I watch that film. That and Farrah Fawcett now is like really okay with being abducted.
Well, to be fair, Burt Reynolds does have a history of semi-abducting women. And them being okay with it. I mean, that is Smokey and the Bandit.
Yeah, but didn't Sally Field jump into his car?
She did jump in the car. That is true. Anyway, by the way, do you know who's, I think, first American film is in that? Who has a very small part in Cannonball Run? His first American film?
Joe Klecko?
I love the Joe Klecko.
Well, he did. I don't know if that was his first film, but he was in it.
Yeah, it's one of his first, if not the first. I don't remember if it's actually the first, but it's way up. Anyway, regardless, no one's here to listen to our takes on a movie from 39 years ago, or maybe they are. I don't know.
Well, it's actually fresh in my mind because in my history of number one songs bit, I just wrote Dean Martin's "Everybody Loves Somebody." And just talking about how he was cool. And for me, the first time I ever really knew who Dean Martin was those roasts that he still had in the late 70s and early 80s. And there he was. And I remember my dad saying, this guy's a legend. Like, this guy? The roast guy?
and his partner, or his buddy Sammy Davis Jr., the Rat Pack, back in Cannonball Run. There you go.
Mm-hmm. Although Cannonball Run 2, what a stinker.
I don't think I saw that one. Yeah, a lot of those, the Caddyshack 2, a lot of those one-off movies that should have been one-off sports movies, this never quite did as well.
Actually, here's a useless fact for you. That's the only time Tony Danza ever won anything as a fictitious athlete. Because his team, with Mel Tillis, won Cannonball Run 2.
An actor's so good, they have to name every one of his characters Tony so he knows they're talking to him.
Yeah, it's one of the least favorite impressions of my wife that I do is Tony Danza, which all it is me going, Samantha, Angela, Mona. That's it. That's pretty much all I'll do. I think I nailed it.
Good. Yeah, you did a good job. I liked it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Anyway,
slow news week.
I thought it had been broken 5 times the last 7 days. And I was like, oh, man. So it's actually from Brooklyn to Redondo Beach, by the way.
Okay.
So it's New York to L.A., but it's technically there's a specific body shop in Brooklyn and a specific spot in Redondo Beach, California, where it begins and ends. So
nice.
There you go.
Yeah, I learn something new every day.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, you knew I was going to launch right into Cannonball Run. I got to surprise you. Keep you on your toes here, man. Don't want you getting rusty.
No.
I mean, you haven't been drinking for so long.
I know, but it's going to be a comeback. Don't call it a comeback because I've been here before. That sounded very white, didn't it? Yes. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Well.
Anyway, so should we get into the topic at hand? Do we want to run through the death call first?
Yeah.
Or do you want to go into what we're doing?
Yeah, let's do the in memoriam bit because it's going to be relatively quick. Because there's 3 that you and I decided that we should talk about. Bob Watson, former Astro, former Yankee.
General manager.
Yeah. And historically speaking, very relevant. Was he the first African American GM in baseball?
That I don't know. I'll look that up while you're talking.
Yeah, if he wasn't the first, he's definitely up there. And as I was going to say, and I didn't tell you exactly how, he has a link to one of my favorite fictitious athlete films.
Okay.
The Bad News Bears and Breaking Training.
Interesting. Okay.
Bob Watson had a very small role as himself. He nailed it, by the way. He was totally believable as himself. And
so he did a better job than Gretzky. Got it. Okay.
A much better job than Wayne Gretzky, portraying Wayne Gretzky. I didn't believe Gretzky at all. Not once. But so the Little League team, the Bears, there's another film that's probably that's way off. If you ever watch that film, or have you ever seen that one?
No, not that one.
Okay, if you ever see that one, just look at the batting order. Somehow their best hitter seems to be in the batting order at least 3 times. I don't know how Coach Mike Leake pulled it off, but he did. And it was brilliant.
It was mustaches.
Oh, he didn't have one. Although he did have that cool Army jacket, played by William Devane. A little shout out to my university friend at Ottawa, who visited me not that long ago here in beautiful Barbados. When I first mentioned this random fact, she had to mention that was one of the many men she had a crush on, which led me to hear all these other things. William Devane, yeah. Anyway, but he also managed in an Army jacket, which also was, I thought, a nice little touch. You ever hear the "Let them play"?
Yeah.
That's him from that film.
Okay.
Now, he got that idea in the film from Bob Watson, because they were playing in the Astrodome, and their exhibition game against the Toros from Texas went just a little. They just weren't allotted enough time, so the Bears were behind. It was the second inning, because I think it was only a 2-inning game. Or a 3-inning game? 3-inning game. And so Bob Watson said, "Come on, man, let the kids play."
All right, interesting.
There's the Bob Watson fact that you didn't need to know.
Exactly. I don't even know if that's on his IMDb page or his Wikipedia page. Anyway. So.
Yeah, well, it should be.
By the way, the first African American general manager, by the way, was Bill Lucas of the Atlanta Braves, who was he had spent 23 years in the Braves system and was the general manager from September of '76 until he died of a heart attack at the age of 43 in May of '79.
And that does seem like something that Ted Turner would do and take pride in.
Well, yeah. Well, when he was general manager, that was when, I don't know if you remember this, Ted Turner fired the manager, and I can't remember who the manager was, and tried to make himself manager before Major League Baseball stepped in and told him he couldn't.
Yeah, I do remember that. A very interesting figure, but there's a lot more good about Ted Turner than bad. But I think
I agree.
Yeah, I think I believe he's got Alzheimer's right now, so he's not in the best of health, unfortunately.
Anyway, so yeah, that is the first person we thought worthy of remembering, who's not in the Hall of Fame and probably won't ever be, but is certainly one of the most powerful men in sports. I mean, being GM of the Yankees is one of the top jobs there is for any executive anywhere.
And and he was on the Hall of Fame ballot. You've got to be a pretty damn good player to be on that ballot.
That is true. No, that is true.
Yeah. So the second one, we'll just do that because I think there's a lot of people still talking about that because a lot of the tributes are pouring in. That of former WWE wrestler Shad Gaspard.
Yeah, Shad Gaspard died the very first day they opened up the beaches in California by drowning. He and some kid both got caught in a riptide. They ended up rescuing the kid.
His kid.
And was it his kid? I didn't actually see that.
Yeah, so his kid.
I mean, a guy as huge as Shad just couldn't deal with it.
Yeah, and just for those who aren't aware, the man was about 6'7", well over 300 pounds. all muscle, still was that way, even though he'd long stopped wrestling. I think he still wrestled independently here and there. But yeah, living in LA, focusing on an acting career. I didn't even realize this. He was in Get Hard with Will Ferrell.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that. It's not a movie. Unfortunately, with kids, I don't really get to watch many things that aren't children's movies these days. So I haven't seen that one. But yeah, he was in that. There were a couple others he was in too, I saw. So he seemed to at least be a working actor, which is more than most people could say in Hollywood. So
yeah, I think that they say that his last act was actually saving his kid.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
So all the tributes that are pouring in from wrestlers who knew him or other people that knew him were just glowing about just what a great, genuine guy he is. Not one bad thing I've ever heard about him, ever.
Right. Yeah, I didn't either. So, I mean, I've made no secret about the fact that I went to high school with Kofi Kingston. And when Kofi won the title at WrestleMania last year, he was in the middle of celebrating, and he got hoisted, 7 feet in the air, because Shad was actually the one who came in behind him to celebrate and lift him up in the middle of the ring. So Kofi's been posting all sorts of pictures and remembrances of him on Facebook and all that other stuff, and absolutely heartbroken. So yeah, I don't want to say this. I doubt, from what I could tell, that he's likely ever to be a WWE Hall of Famer, but he was certainly a successful wrestler for at least a decade in the WWE, correct?
Not
at least half a decade.
I think more like a half decade. He was in their developmental system for a bit. I never really liked the gimmick that they saddled him with, essentially happy-go-lucky criminal.
Oh, yeah, it's not the best.
No, so their actual vignettes before they debuted were them like robbing liquor stores, banks, shit like that. So yeah, just your happy criminals, with the fake grill and everything. So just playing at the stereotype. I mean, they didn't seem to mind from every interview I ever came across. I wasn't too thrilled with it personally, but perhaps I get a little too offended easily. I try to work on that. Saying that though, yeah, he's not likely to ever get into the WWE Hall of Fame, and realistically, he probably shouldn't be. But in terms of what he was as an individual, clearly, just like if there's a great guy Hall of Fame, he'd be in it.
Yeah. It sucks, particularly for someone that young. So, sure. By the way, off of this topic for a second, but talking about WWE interviews, you didn't happen to see the hour and 45 minutes that Bill Simmons sat down with The Undertaker this week, did you?
I heard about it. I saw his tweet that's the first time that he's interviewing a dead person. I haven't seen it yet, though. Is it good?
Yeah. It is fantastic. It's weird to hear The Undertaker talk, because that was pretty much part of his shtick, and Simmons asked him that, and he said that he's done more press in the last 2 weeks because there's that documentary coming out about him. That he was originally meant to be a documentary. He was just filming what he thought was going to be his last match at WrestleMania 2017, and then he kept going, and they just kept filming and decided to put everything together. But he said he was so committed to the act that he thought if he actually talked and gave interviews, it would destroy it. So he didn't do it, but he's incredibly articulate. He should just be in sports media. He's fantastic as a speaker and describing everything, and just seems like an all-around genuinely nice guy. And honestly, with The Undertaker, I don't know I was prepared for that.
Yeah, they've got it's a 5-part series documentary that they're doing on the WWE Network. I've seen part 1. I haven't seen part 2 yet. And it is really, really, really good from what I've seen. And a lot of WWE documentaries are not. They're very, very slanted, as you can imagine. This one, well, again, I only have part 1 to critique, but it was one of the best things produced I've ever seen them do.
Yeah, well, I've heard that too. So I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to, but do yourself the favor, find the hour and 45 minutes and just watch it. Simmons honestly does a fantastic job with it, and The Undertaker is fascinating. So Highly recommended. I know this is probably not the place for it, but you brought up WWE interviews and stuff, and that just came to mind. So,
well,
anyway,
usually we're really tight. We never
segue.
Yeah, we never segue off the top of our heads ever, though. It never happens.
No, that's true.
Yeah.
No, everything is meticulously planned.
Yeah, exactly. And you had a third person that you thought was worth mentioning.
Yeah, well, I actually have a fourth, too. I'll bring up the fourth, and then we'll go back to the third.
Sure.
The only actual member of the Hall of Fame, although we don't cover it all, that's out there, it was Stephen DeMauro, who is an American jockey and horse breeder, won a whole bunch of races. It was inducted into the Horse Racing Hall of Fame in 2012, passed away at the age of 86 yesterday. So just one of those people who would never come across a thing, but was an actual member of the Hall of Fame, and he has, I'll just look at his major race wins. He's got to have 50 of them on his Wikipedia page, going from 1962 through 1988. I think he's probably worth mentioning. But the other one who's never going to be in a Hall of Fame because there's no Hall of Fame for it, but I think we really need to bring up as a pioneer, is Phyllis George.
Yes.
One of the, I would say, 4 most successful Miss America winners of all time. Vanessa Williams, I'd still say, is number 1. Gretchen Carlson is there as well. There's another one, too, whose name I can't remember, or who's another one who's slipping in my mind right now. But she went from being at Miss America in, I think, 1971 to being the first woman to host a sports studio show when she took over the NFL show on, I believe that was CBS.
I think so. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I still remember like the bad Atari graphics running through that. This I don't know. I guess this 8-bit football player sort of like running through, starring Brent Musburger, Irv Cross, Phyllis George, and Jimmy the Greek Snyder.
Jimmy the Greek,
who was also on Cannonball Run.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, exactly. 1974. But she passed away at the age of 70 after battle with cancer. I mean, just in terms of impact within an industry that was entirely male-dominated, just having her in there and how hard she had to work, because she was originally just seen as, eye candy. When you win Miss America, automatically that's the most important thing people think about you, right? And she just had to work her butt off and make sure that she was respected in there. It's pretty amazing. And looking back on her work and everything, she's clearly one of the most respected journalists out there and a true trailblazer.
Absolutely.
And even though there's no Hall of Fame for her, I think we need to take a moment and just appreciate what she had done.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's also a lot too. And there's still, I'd say, channels that sort of will. I don't think the big ones that'll do that, but yeah, you're right. She was brought in there for eye candy. I think a lot of time they're still doing that with sideline reporters, depending on the channel in question. I don't think that any of the big ones are doing that, but I've certainly suspected that one. I'd be carousing through the channels, and it might be sort of like a lower division college team doing that. Like, okay, are you getting a credit? Because if you're not pronouncing football right, maybe you shouldn't be there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And boom goes the dynamite. So
just a thought. But yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it also taught people very, very early on, at least, people of our generation, my generation being a little older than yours, as you like to bring out once in a while, really all the time, and you should, because I would, that women can be sportscasters. Because if you learn that at a young age, then you don't see anything weird about it.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. This is a very strange segue here. But have you seen Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse? I
have not. Heard about that. That's the animated version, right?
That movie is fantastic. Every time it's reached a status that every time it's on and I'm flicking through channels, I will watch it. But that's one of the best things about that movie is that there's so many different Spider-Men, including a pig and a woman and a black kid and a guy in black and white and everything. That the whole idea is that there are different universes that all collide. but anybody can wear the mask, which I think is real important. And I think the idea that anyone can sit in this seat if you work hard enough and are good at it
absolutely
is one of those lessons that everybody needs to learn at a young age. And Phyllis George, I mean, not just breaking the glass ceiling, but like being put on the glass ceiling as probably some sort of bauble, and then not only succeeding but destroying it is really, really important. So
I didn't see, did any of the other female sportscasters sort of offer any tribute to her?
I saw a few. I don't remember specifically who.
The only tribute.
I know Brent Musburger did. I saw Irv Cross tweet something out.
The only tweet I saw about that, and I admit I didn't look that hard, was from your president.
Oh, well. Yeah. So, let's see, Kim Brando. What's going
But not like Jamel Hill or any of the other female broadcasters? I'll have to look
I just switched over to this, so I know Hannah Storm.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Yeah.
But by the way, we brought up Hannah Storm's dad a couple weeks ago, who passed away as one of our folks, and I completely forgot that was Hannah Storm's dad.
Oh, who's that?
The guy who is the general manager of the ABA.
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on, I can't think of his name. It's just out of my head.
Yeah, I'm blanking on that too, but I didn't know that.
I didn't either until like afterwards, because he had just passed away that day.
Mm-hmm.
Hannah Storm's father was Mike Storin.
Okay.
So Mike Storin, who passed away, who is also in the Arena Football League and a couple other things, was Hannah Storm's dad. So
who's
anyway,
who's your favorite female announcer?
Come on. Yeah, exactly. Well, let's get off the death roll into what everyone's here for. Us going through a silly list of our own devising.
Oh yeah, but before there, I just asked who's your favorite female announcer in sports?
Oh, my favorite female announcer?
Yeah, announcer, sideline, whatever. Doesn't matter what they're doing. Like, I'll give you mine.
I think Doris Burke.
Okay,
I think Doris Burke is fantastic doing play-by-play in baseball games. Basketball games. I mean.
Yeah, I was going to say that one like right off.
Yeah, that's the first one that comes to mind. I think Susie Colbert does a pretty good job. I think Robin Roberts, she's out of sports now, but she was pretty good. I mean, Linda Cohn is fantastic, although she doesn't do play-by-play on anything. Yeah, there are a few that come to mind right away.
You actually just nailed the exact ones that I was gonna say.
And Hannah Storm, we already brought her up, but Hannah Storm's also fantastic too.
Mm-hmm.
So,
no, for sure. But yeah, we had a funny list of our own design. Well, not really list. I didn't rank them. I should have. Maybe that might be a future article for Not in Hall of Fame, which is the worst retired numbers of the Big Four in sports. And man, there's quite a few.
All right, so we asked what team had the worst overall retired numbers. I'm going to save it for now because I'm not exactly sure I'm right, but there are two West Coast teams that really have to do a little bit of looking into what they're doing.
I've got to know one right off the top of my head. I'm positive who you're thinking.
Yeah, one is a franchise that fell in love with one team, and the other is a franchise that was desperately hoping for numbers to retire. So I think the one you're thinking of is probably the second one, which is far worse.
Okay.
But I think that when we're going to this, I think we should lay with a couple ground rules that we laid out there.
Yes.
One was that we weren't going to talk about anyone who passed away and had their numbers retired, because that's a whole separate sort of issue. Because it's unlikely Bobby Phills, for example,
mm-hmm.
or Malik Sealy would have had their numbers retired had they not passed away.
Right.
And it's not a discussion either of us really want to get into. But so we're just going to leave that aside, correct?
Yeah, absolutely correct. And, at that particular point in time, it's the right thing to do. I think what was sort of staggering is when I was looking, I don't know if you felt the same way, is just how many of them are in the National Football League.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't count them, but it would have gone past my fingers and toes.
Yeah, there's a whole heck of a lot of them. And I went looking for like the worst guy on the Bears who's had his number retired, because the Bears have retired more numbers even than the Celtics, which seems impossible. But I even left the Bears out of this. I didn't really have one who I was like, that is absolutely terrible. So, yeah. Anyway, should I start or do you want to start?
I'm feeling very gracious, so I'm going to let you start.
Okay. So one of the other things that I asked whether we should do or not, and I'm only going to do it for the first one, is whether we should include executives or owners who have their numbers retired for them. The idea of retiring a number for the fans is also kind of lame to me. But
I hate that. I actually have that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that.
No, go ahead. We overlap all the time. It's fine.
Yeah, that's true. But I just want to say the dumbest number I think that its team has retired for somebody is the Florida Marlins, or now the Miami Marlins, have retired number 5. You remember number 5 in the Miami Marlins?
Not off the top of my head.
No, because there wasn't one. It's for their very first president, Carl Barger. Or Barger. I don't even know if it's Barger or Barger. But nobody has ever heard of him. It's not like it's like the Celtics have retired number for their owner, Walter Brown. But Walter Brown was there for like 12 championships, right? It's one thing for that. Carl Barger was with them from 1991 until like 1996, where they didn't do anything. They didn't even play baseball those first 2 years. And they retired number 5. Why do you think they retired number 5 in honor of Carl Barger?
I'm sure it's for the most asinine reason possible.
Because his favorite player growing up was Joe DiMaggio.
Oh, yeah. When I think of the Marlins, I think of DiMaggio.
Of course. I mean, well, Jeter's there, so of course. DiMaggio, I mean, he was just, how many years before Jeter got there? 23? Yeah. So I'm going to nominate as the worst of the executives having a number retired for them, Carl Barger of the Florida Marlins. Just stop.
So
there you go. There's my first one.
Yeah, and I left that one off because I know that's one that I knew you were going to talk about. And do they even have that like in their field, like just like at the big number 5? Because I don't think even a lot of people even know that.
I would ask a Miami Marlins fan, but they don't exist, so I'm not sure.
I don't even think they existed the 2 years they won the World Series.
Well, they could have existed. I mean, that 98 team? Yeah, that 98 team was really, really good. And then they got rid of it really, really fast. So, yeah. Yeah, so that's my first one. Who's your first one?
Well, I was going to sort of like touch on, actually, I think you and I both said that we had more than 10. So I am going to sort of like just say initially, I hate the fact when any team panders to the fans and retires a number for that. It's bad enough when the Seahawks did it. It was bad when the Kings did it because, like, really? Because they all had cowbells during that time, which they're not allowed to have anymore. But the worst to me was, I think, when the Minnesota Wild had retired the number 1. I think that was even before they even played a game.
Yeah.
How do you know if your fans are even good or not?
Fans so good, our first team moved to Texas. Yes. I mean, to be fair, we've talked about how much we love the Minnesota sports fans. That was not their fault.
No, not at all.
It's just, it's ridiculous. So,
but I'm going to start off close to home though with and I'm going to use 2 players with this if that's all right. Because
that's fine.
My beloved New Orleans Saints have retired 2 numbers of 2 players, not because they died, but who had a total combined 4 years. Jim Taylor, former Green Bay Packer, who joined the Saints in their inaugural year, had maybe had about 300 yards. That's it, and then retired right after because they pretty much said like we can't really use you as a starter, and that's when he was playing for the worst team in football.
Mm-hmm.
And then Doug Atkins, who was there for 3 seasons, didn't do much, didn't really do anything. So those 2 players have had their numbers retired. And some other great players like Sam Mills, Ricky Jackson do not.
Yeah, that's that's a weird recurring theme we're going to find. Players who had most of their career someplace else, and then played the very end of their career someplace, and the last place got their number retired. Yeah, that's not good. And the Saints did it. Yeah, the Saints did it twice. I had Taylor on my list. I actually didn't have Atkins on there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel far stronger about Taylor than Atkins, but at the end of the day, Atkins didn't do that much either. When I put together my top 50 Saints list, which will be out in a few months, neither of these guys are on it. They wouldn't have come close if it was top 100.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know why that happened. I was trying to find out. I went to their site, went everywhere I could, trying to actually figure out why this happened. I can't, other than Taylor was a Louisiana boy, so he was coming home. But so I don't think he sold any tickets.
Yeah, I don't know.
So yeah, that's where I'm starting off there. So just to eliminate my Saints bias, there it is.
Well, can I stick in New Orleans for my next one?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to link two as well, who had their numbers retired by teams they didn't even play for.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah, I know where this is going.
So they're both NBA teams. The first is Pete Maravich.
Yep.
Pete Maravich is number 7. Pete Maravich played in New Orleans in his career. The problem is he played for the New Orleans Jazz. His number is retired by used to be New Orleans Hornets, who started in Charlotte, of course, and didn't exist when Maravich was playing, but is now still retired by the New Orleans Pelicans. So the Pelicans retired Pete Maravich's number, who passed away, I believe, close to a decade before the Charlotte Hornets, who became the New Orleans Hornets, who became the New Orleans Pelicans, even existed. Which is an impressive feat, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
The second one of these, do you know what the other one I'm going to talk about from the NBA?
In New Orleans?
No, in the Southeast. The Miami Heat have retired number 23. In honor of whom?
Was it number 13 for Marino? Is that
number 23 is retired in honor of Michael Jordan.
Oh, okay. I didn't even catch that. They also have Dan Marino retired.
Oh, well, that one, somehow I missed that one. So Marino's number is retired by the Miami Heat?
Yes.
Okay, well, there are a lot of teams, so I only did a quick scan on some of them. But my goodness, that Miami Heat have to go in the list now for worst sets of retired numbers. My goodness, two guys aren't even playing the same sport. Wow. But yeah, so Michael Jordan, I guess they were trying to, start the trend of retiring Jordan's number everywhere, all over the place.
Speaking of that, I got a great segue when you're done with this. I don't want to forget my train of thought here, but yeah, continue with that.
Yeah, I was going to say, and it didn't really catch on. So they retired his number in 2003, which is right after he retired the second time. I know we just had that big documentary that came out that made it seem like he had never met Kwame Brown at any point in his career.
That's what Kwame Brown wished.
Kwame Brown probably wishes that was the case. That man may have had a better shot if he didn't have Jordan as his general manager and teammate. But yeah, so his number was retired in 2003 to honor his achievements and contributions in basketball, and then basically no other team followed. Which is part of the reason why LeBron, when he went to Miami, was 23 in Cleveland, changed to 6. Because 23 had already been retired.
So 23 is one of those numbers that could be retired league-wide. I don't think anyone would have a problem with it. So something came up this week that sort of tied in. Leroy Butler said that Bart Starr's 15 should be retired league-wide. And I thought, really? Like, Bart Starr was one hell of a quarterback, but...
Yeah, no, I disagree.
Yeah, I do too. I think if Bart Starr was alive, he'd disagree.
Yeah, I'd agree. So anyway, so there's my number 2 and 3, both for the NBA, 2 players whose numbers were retired by teams they never played for.
Okay. So I'll stick with one of my teams when I was a little kid, before the Jays existed. Rusty Staub, Montreal Expos.
Yeah, Rusty Staub's on my list as well.
Yeah, and Staub was a pretty good player. Analytics don't do him a whole lot of favors because of his relatively low on-base percentage. But, good hitter, near 3,000. But he was a gimmick. He got over in Montreal. People loved him because he had red hair. That's it.
That's part of the reason the Celtics fans love Brian Scalabrine as well, but we did not retire number 44 in his honor.
I would not have even known that was his number.
Well, 44 is a joke number for the Celtics because it was Danny Ainge's number, and so it basically always goes to a white guy who's somewhere at the end of the bench at this point. Scalabrine, Yuri Welsh had it for a while. Like it's a who's who of white dudes. It's the number 44 on the Celtics. So.
And it wasn't that Staub was a bad player for the Expos. He was very good. Three years there, All-Star each of those years. But I'm guessing it was all because he was the first star on an expansion team. Did he sell a lot of tickets? Probably not. I think in the first year you're going to sell tickets no matter what because you're a novelty.
Right.
But he wasn't a superstar at the level of the other ones that are retired. Dawson, Carter, and Reigns. It's not even close. He's not in that sentence, nor should he be. So Staub, I thought, was a really poor choice.
Fair enough. Yeah, I had him on my list as well. Staub's actually a better job because he was at least an All-Star 3 times. His claim to a franchise that was just beginning is better than some other folks, even though he was only there for 3 years. But you're right. Compared to the other Expos, numbers are retired. It's questionable.
Yeah, so, Youppi's not even retired, and Youppi's still working.
Yeah, Youppi is one of the few, like we said before, one of the few mascots who's gone to multiple franchises since he's now the Canadiens mascot. All right, so for my next 2, I'm going to tie 2 more together, and I'm going to pick former Boston athletes who had the numbers retired in Boston and someplace else.
Okay.
So the first of these is Wade Boggs.
Yep. Yeah, he's on mine too.
Yeah, so Boggs had his 3,000th hit with the Devil Rays. He's actually still the only player to hit the home run as his 3,000th hit. And honestly, of all the guys that have 3,000 hits, he's pretty low on the list. To have a home run is that number, if you're going to pick one. But Boggs played there for 2 seasons, and when he retired, tried to go into the Hall of Fame as a Devil Ray. I don't know if you remember that.
I do.
But he's a native of Canada, and the Baseball Hall of Fame said, no, you're going as a Red Sox. And that was basically what precipitated the Hall of Fame deciding who got to wear what hat. That and Winfield going in as a Padre were the 2 things that really changed that. But, I mean, they have a yellow seat in his honor where his ball hit in the stands at Tropicana Field. He played 2 years, and that's basically all you can say. Wade Boggs was a shadow of his former self. He was just playing out the string, getting numbers at that point. But, I mean, they've been around since, 1998, right? Was that when the Rays started? And this was, 2000 and... I don't even know what year it was. Think about it. But they hadn't been around long enough to have a number retired. Like I said last week when I was upset that the UFC Hall of Fame started 4 years too early, unless you have an absolute incredible person or you feel like you need to honor the fans before you play a game, don't retire any numbers for the first few years. Let it play out. Otherwise, you cheapen the whole thing. And so Boggs is the first one. The second one is former Boston Bruins legend, Ray Bourque.
Ooh. Okay.
So Bourque's number is retired by the Bruins and by the Colorado Avalanche, who he played his last season and a half with. Bourque winning the Stanley Cup and lifting it high over his head is still one of the great feel-good stories of hockey and guys retiring on top and everything like that. The grizzled veteran, although he was younger when he did that than I am now, which makes me feel super old. But the guy who you never thought the Bruins would trade, they trade him to Colorado. He wins the championship in his second year and gets the Stanley Cup. And then Boston is so desperate for a Stanley Cup victory, we actually had a parade for Ray Bourque when he got back.
Oh, really?
To Boston. We did. It was sad and pathetic and yet fitting for Bourque. It was like fitting for Bourque and sad and pathetic for the city. Because that was, it's hard for people to remember now, but from 1986, when the Celtics won the championship, through 2001, when the Patriots won the championship, there was some lean times in Boston. There were some terrible, terrible teams. Patino Celtics and Bruins being super cheap under Jeremy Jacobs, and the Patriots bottomed out and then got to a Super Bowl only to have our coach negotiate to leave to go to another team. And the Red Sox had the 86 World Series, and they had a few division titles only to get their butts kicked by the Bash Brothers. But it was some lean times. It's been 15 years without a championship, which has been a long time for the city. And they decided to give Bourque a parade. And he got a parade in a city where he did not win a Stanley Cup and got his number retired for a team that he played fewer than 100 games for in his career. So those are two pretty questionable numbers, even though both those guys are Hall of Famers. They just are not Hall of Famers with those teams.
Yeah, I will say, though, with Bourque over Boggs, Bourque was a good key contributor on that Avalanche team. Boggs didn't do shit as a Red.
100%.
Yeah, but I agree with you.
He was. But again, he played fewer than 100 games with the franchise.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Which one?
Who you got next?
Well, here's one that I don't quite understand, and another one I was trying to really look to see, like, okay, did he get sick? Because it's a hockey player that I'm not even that familiar with, and so unfamiliar that I'm not even sure I'm even pronouncing his name right. So on the
yeah, sorry, before you say it, I don't know. Before you say it, did he play for the Washington Capitals?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! Go ahead. I was going to bring him up. Good. Go ahead.
All right, Avon Labor. I don't know. I'm sure the Anglophone in me wants to say labor. The Francophone in me wants to say blah.
It's probably Labre.
Labre,
like the tar pit.
The Capitals. So he played for the Capitals, and he does at least meet the requirements of how long he played there. 371 career games, so not bad. Played there through the 70s, but the Capitals. For the younger listeners, which I guess the younger listeners for us would probably be late 30s, but if anyone's younger, or if you're Vinny's age, Vinny Lospinuso, 21-year-old wonderkid who knows everything football. The Capitals in the 70s were garbage. Absolute, utter garbage. They were so bad, if I remember right, in the 70s, they had 1 year where they had 8 wins. So here you have nobody who's on any of those teams should have their number retired, period, because they were that bad. So defenseman here, 101 career points. I don't understand why they sort of did that unless they were just trying to be nice to a good guy.
Yeah.
But, never an all-star, never a guy considered to be maybe even the top 10 or 20 defensemen in the league.
Yeah. It's a kind of a crazy one. I mean, in the middle of this whole thing where he's supposed to be so good, he spent half a season with the Hershey Bears, like right in the middle of his career.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And if you're going to sort of like do someone from the old days, how about one of your first 50-goal scorer, Dennis Maruk?
Yeah, because that's part of it too. That's part of this whole list. People whose numbers are retired versus people whose numbers should be retired and aren't for these franchises.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't get it. There's something I'm missing. I was searching. To see if there was something other than, well, he was a great guy and just, the fans loved him. Okay, but I think if your number is going to be retired, you should be more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a pretty good one. I was thinking of him, but I was just like, I guess he was so minor, I almost wanted to skip it, because I didn't know what to say about him. He was again, and I don't have any Yvon, we don't even know how to say his name, Yvon Lebray memories, but know that he was captain from 1976 through 1979 on that team. And in the middle of that time, when he was captain, he spent half a season with the Hershey Bears.
You're basically the captain of a Somalian pirate ship that wasn't able to take over Captain Phillips.
I'm the captain. Oh, no, I guess I'm not the captain now.
Well, he's French. Je suis un captain.
That's very good Jacques Lafitte by you.
Thank you. All my French. You'd think being half Quebecois, I'd be better at that.
I'm also part Quebecois, so.
Are you really?
I did one. Yeah, I did one of those. Well, my dad's mom's maiden name was Cote, Cote.
Okay.
But I'm actually part of that. The group of my whatever ancestors, part of that group of fur trappers who came over to the Gaspé in the 1660s.
Nice.
That had the world's first dating service where the women were in charge. Do you ever hear that part of the history?
The first ever dating service?
So here's what happened. So they sent the French sent settlers over to be fur trappers in northern Canada. Now, two fun things come out of this situation. One is that it gets so cold in Canada in those forests in the winters that when they were trying to observe Lent, there were no fish for them to eat. So they were basically starving because they didn't have farming up there either. So they actually got the Pope to make a special dispensation to make beaver officially a fish in the eyes of the Vatican. So that is actually true. The Vatican considers beaver a fish in order to meet Lenten requirements.
So we're talking about beaver being a fish and fur trapping, and I'm not supposed to make an inappropriate sex joke here?
You can be Leslie Nielsen talking to Priscilla Presley walking up the ladder. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. So just so you know, it's beaver, iguana, and there's one other animal that are all considered fish by the Vatican for various reasons having to do with people settling in places they couldn't grow their own food and couldn't catch fish. So there you go. There's number one. Number two, and I'm sure this is, again, what everyone want to talk about, they sent the fur trappers over, but they had no women. So what they did was the King of France, I believe it's either 600 or 800, I can't remember which one, but he got a whole bunch of poor women and paid them money to go over and basically be wives for these guys over there. So the women went over there, and they refused to let the guys pick. So the guys basically walked into the room with the women, and one by one, and the women decided whether or not they wanted to marry the guy. And this was like 1675 or something.
So that's the first version of swiping right?
I'm sorry?
The first version of swiping right?
Essentially, yeah. It was essentially the first version of swiping right, and probably the first situation where women had full control over who they're going to marry. But so one of those women and one of those fur trappers is my paternal grandmother's side of the family. So there you go.
That is awesome. That is awesome.
So those are the two fun things that come out of. Well, I mean, there are other wonderful things, but the only two things I know about the French original French settlers in the Gaspé in Quebec. So
that is awesome. I know virtually nothing beyond my grandparents. My grandfather was a lumberjack, which I always thought was kind of cool.
That's okay.
Yeah, a French lumberjack.
Mm-hmm. Do you work all night and sleep all day? I made the joke the first time. I had to back it up because you missed it. So
no, I did miss it. But yeah, that's awesome. I'm a lumberjack and I'm okay. I love that. Love that. But yes, for all those wondering what the next retired number, we did it again.
Yeah, we did. All right, so I'm going to do. I should move on to the next one here. I'm going to do the San Diego Padres edition of who the hell's number are you retiring? Because I'm not sure the Padres, and granted they have Tony Gwynn retired, but they have retired the numbers first. The worst of the two that I want to bring up actually is Steve Garvey.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
So Steve Garvey was a member of the Dodgers for 14 years. He won the NL MVP. He was in 8 straight All-Star games, and he won a World Series. Right?
Yep.
He's not retired by the Dodgers. He played in San Diego for 5 years, posted an OPS of 100, which is basically being an average player. And he won the 84 NLCS MVP, which is true, and his team did reach a World Series. But he had 8 homers in with the team, and in 605 regular season games, he posted a WAR of 1.3 total in 605 games.
Which is bad. Really, really bad.
Which is, like, that's super bad. That's ridiculous. So if his number was retired by the Dodgers, nobody would blink an eye, right?
No.
But being retired by the Padres is dubious at best, put it that way. The other one that I wanted to bring up, hold on, I want to get his stats in front of me before I do anything, or his stuff in front of me, is the only Cy Young winner in the history of baseball who has an overall career losing record. Do you know who that is?
That's someone I've got on mine, Randy Jones.
Randy Jones, yeah. Randy Jones went 100 and 123 in his career, but he did win the Cy Young Award with San Diego. So I guess that sort of qualifies him as someone who the Padres should retire. But, I mean, a guy with a losing record, probably not somebody who needs to be memorialized.
No, not at all. And again, it's the disease of a young team just trying to build a history unnaturally. Or a legacy, rather.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the rest of their numbers that are retired are fine. It's Tony Gwynn, it's Dave Winfield, it's Trevor Hoffman, and of course Jackie Robinson. Mm-hmm. Just those two, Steve Garvey and Randy Jones, just stick out like sore thumbs when it comes to retired numbers. So.
Okay. So I want to move to the hardwood for my next one. And I'm really looking at, if I were to field a team of all of these players in their prime, and yes, I know that they won a championship, but it was a fluke win for the most part. I'm looking at almost the entire layout of the Portland Trail Blazers.
That was the basketball team I was talking about.
Yeah, I figured as much. Two of which
1977 Trailblazers. Yeah, pretty much. If you brought water and towels to people, your number is retired.
Absolutely. And there's two standouts for me. The first one being Bob Gross. Best season he had, 30 minutes a game. They didn't actually show starts at that point, but based on the fact that his minutes played, even in the championship year, was 27.2. Not bad, but his average is 11.4 points per game. Small forward, not even at 5 rebounds a game. His advanced stats are pretty weak. I think we both subscribe to the PER. We've never talked about it, but I'm assuming we do. So his highest PER in a year was 16.9. That's nothing special.
Right.
Yeah, so he was the one that sort of stuck out the most for me. The other one being Lloyd Neal.
So just by the way, Bob Gross's numbers with Portland in the 486 games he played, 9.2 points, 4.5 rebounds, 3 assists.
Right.
So that's not even 10 points a game.
Not even.
Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead. Give us Lloyd Neal.
Yeah, Lloyd Neal. So a career Trailblazer. So he's got that going for him with all 7 seasons. That's it. At least he scored more than Gross. Did have a decent rookie year with where he averaged a double-double. But again, during that championship year, he was averaging 16.5 minutes a game. That's it. Mm-hmm. So don't tell me that he was a big factor on it. He really wasn't. His PER that year was 13.1. A career PER at least of 15.4, so he's got that. He's better than that 15 where they say is an average player. His VORP, career VORP, 2.8. Really stands out.
Yeah. He played more than 70 games in a season 3 times in his career.
Mm-hmm.
And only played 435 games.
Right.
Although he was on the all-rookie team in the NBA. So
he was on,
second to Bob McAdoo.
He was an all rookie. So I mean, absolutely. If you're an all rookie, you definitely should have your number retired. No questions asked.
Mm-hmm. That's when Michael Candy's retired all over the league.
Why is that funnier than it is?
Because it's fun to say Michael Oliver Candy.
It is.
So anyway.
Yeah, from the University of Pacific, which is the only player I've ever heard of from the University of Pacific. Maybe that's why.
You may be.
Yeah, and realistically, the whole list of the players for the Trailblazers, this isn't the greatest bunch of players. I mean, other than Bill Walton, who was finally healthy against Clyde Drexler.
Let's get that out of the way. Walton deserves to have his number retired. I actually want to bring up 2 more guys since we're already there.
Okay.
Can we talk about Larry Steele for a second?
Yeah, that was another one I had, and then I just
he at least led the NBA in steals, which is cool because his last name was Steele, in 73 and 74. But essentially, in 610 career games, he averaged 8.2 points and 1.8 steals. And he's also the all-time leader in fouling out for the Blazers.
Yeah, I had him, and I just figured I was shitting on the Trailblazers too much, and then I backed off of that. But yes,
he had 45 foul outs in 610 games. And finally, Dave Twardzik, who's better known as a coach now, but he averaged 3.5 assists a game while being the point guard, and averaged below 10 points a game. And local beat reporter J.C. Quick ranks him as the 26th best Blazer of all time. So,
I honestly think if you put this together in their prime, they're a number 4 seed now at best.
Yeah. I mean, the current Blazers team is not winning anything. I mean, even adjusting for eras is destroying this team.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my favorite Twardzik quote that I was when he got his number retired, I was a decent player on a very good team, and I'm very thankful for that.
I love it. He's humble. He's honest.
He's humble. He's honest about it. Yeah. So, how many have we done? I've lost track.
I have 2, as typically we do. How many ones do you really want that are pretty really big? I got 2 actually 3 that I really want to touch on, and then 1 question for you since you know this team way better than I do.
All right. Well, I'm going. There's one I want to bring up, and we'll see who yours are, and then if there's one other that I could bring up.
Okay.
I just want to talk about number 15, retired by the Dallas Mavericks. Here's my question for you, my friend.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite Brad Davis memory?
None. 0. I got nothing.
It's basically a generic name generator. If you played, just had the old NCAA basketball games where you either could choose between just having numbers for all the players or having them generate names.
It's a name you check into a hotel with when you're cheating on your wife.
Exactly right. He played 12 seasons in Dallas, to be fair. He started in Anchorage of the Continental Basketball Association. It was signed away in 1980. Played with from 80 to 92. Including in that 1980 Dallas team is the one that won 15 games. But his teammates, he played with Rolando Blackman, he played with Derek Harper, Sam Perkins, Mark Aguirre. Derek Harper actually once called him the hardest working player in the NBA. But his peak year in 12 years was 12.7 points a game and 7.2 assists. He made 0 All-Star games and averaged 8.6 points and 5.1 assists per game in 12 years. He's essentially like Bimbo Coles, Speedy Claxton, just a guy who happened to play for a team for 12 years and never left. It's one of those, we talk about people compiling stats for getting the Hall of Fame. That's legitimately compiling to get his number retired for a team.
I mean, the only thing I can see why they would bother is that he was the final guy left, as an original Maverick, but okay.
Yeah.
It's And I don't know that not getting fired is really something to hang your hat on. Actually, this kind of segues to one I wanted to ask you about. He's not on my list, but one I don't quite understand. I know he's super popular in Boston. Can you explain to me Jim Loskatoff? Because I know he doesn't have a number retired. I know that he said that basically said he wasn't good enough. But correct me if I'm wrong. In the Celtics arena, I forget the name of the arena where they play.
The TD Bank North Garden at the moment.
Okay, thanks. So when they have all the numbers there, they don't even have the names listed, right? It's just the number.
It's just numbers except for his name. It's not even his name, it's his nickname.
Mm-hmm.
So Jim Loskatoff will tell you that he does not deserve to have his number retired, which is why his number wasn't retired by him. So he was number 18 on the Celtics, which has since been retired. 18 was Cowens, right? I'm trying to remember that off the top of my head. I think it's Dave Cowens' number. Hold on.
I think you're right, yeah. But when I look at his stats, Loskatoff to me...
So he was on all those teams and was basically LeBray. I mean, he was a tough guy. He was more of a role player who stuck with the team and everything. And a lot of those early Celtics teams guys just won so many championships, they started retiring them all. But when they tried to retire Loskatoff's number, he wouldn't let them. He said that he wasn't good enough to have it. So when it has up on all the numbers, though, up there, it actually has diagonally from top left to bottom right, LOSCY for Losky, which was his nickname on the team, because he thought that compared to all the other numbers they were retiring, he didn't deserve it. That was the only way he let them retire him. Retire his number, which is interesting because now it's easier for people to remember him because his name's on there.
That's what I was going to say. Like that exactly.
I mean, I don't think he was going for that. But yeah, Loskatoff is definitely the weakest number that has been retired for the Celtics, unless you're counting number 1 and 2, which were retired for the owner and the coach, with Walter Brown and Red Auerbach.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, of all of the numbers up there, I mean, the name that got retired. I always joke the Celtics have retired so many numbers they actually had to retire a name. So no one named Loskatoff can ever play for the Celtics again. But yeah, no, I agreed. He's definitely the weakest guy up there. I mean, he was a 7-time champion. He averaged 6.2 points a game, 5.6 rebounds a game, and 0.7 assists per game. Like, he does not deserve to be there. He was actually one of the people who I had on my list. The difference, though, compared to everyone else, is technically he was a member of those 7 championship teams. That's a little bit, without an actual Hall of Fame for the franchise. That's the way they're doing it. I can understand that way because they didn't have a better way to honor him, but even he would have agreed. And he did agree that he didn't deserve to have his number retired.
Okay. And you said you had one more?
Oh, I thought you had 2 more after that.
Oh, I do, yeah. So I'm going to go with the hard luck Cincinnati Bengals. And it's not even so much that I have a problem with this player being retired. I mean, he was a good player, but the Bengals have only retired one number. That's Bob Johnson, former lineman.
Oh, yeah. So the very first person everybody thinks of when they think of the Cincinnati Bengals, Bob Johnson. Yeah,
and it's it's another one. Like, okay, you've had Anthony Munoz, your only Hall of Famer. He's not there. Ken Anderson, who probably should be in the Hall of Fame, but your first guy, it sounds like it's almost the Yvonne LeBray of this, because he stuck it out. An original Bengal, first ever pick of the team, but. Mm-hmm. He wasn't a special player by any stretch. I mean, a good player. But when I think of the Cincinnati Bengals, and I think I'm not alone in that, I think older fans and current fans, Bob Johnson's not going to be a name you come up with.
Right. No, agreed.
And that's
yeah.
And that's
how could Ken Anderson get a Hall of Fame if they didn't retire his number? Or
that's another good one.
There, so.
Well, I mean, like they always talk about, and I just was talking to Vinny about this today. One of the most underappreciated players ever, or disrespected, is Ken Riley. Riley got to 3 All-Pros, but they never even named him to a Pro Bowl. But, you're not even retiring his number.
Wow. Yeah, that's not the best I've ever heard either.
Yeah, so that one is the one I had. The other one I have is Frank Tripucka, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, former quarterback.
Tripucka?
Tripucka. Tripucka. Pucka Orchestra. Listen to the radio. Former quarterback of the Broncos. Nothing special. Led the league in interceptions. Not like they won a title there with him. And he was a journeyman going back and forth from the CFL to semi-pro before that. I don't understand the appeal. Maybe he was super popular there. I don't know. I was looking for research on that. Didn't find too much.
Mm-hmm.
So that one I think is a little weak. Very weak.
Yeah, that is pretty weak. I do have to say, though, this is completely off topic again. But there was I don't know if you saw the obituary of the week this week. There's a 65-year-old man who died in Arizona who just had a fantastic obituary that made the rounds on Twitter. But I saw his nephew posted something on his favorite quote of his from his uncle's Facebook page, which was, "Why do Broncos?" The question he asked was, "Why do Broncos fans wear orange?"
Okay.
You have an answer?
No. What?
So they can go to jail on Friday. They go to jail on Friday. Oh, I've already screwed up what Saturday is. Go to games on Sunday and work at Home Depot on Monday. I can't remember. I screwed up because I can't remember what Saturday was. But yeah, it was funny. But yeah, anyway, you brought up the Broncos and I thought of it, and I completely screwed up the joke. I should have looked it up before I started talking. But anyway, all right. So the last one I do want to bring up. Just more because of the fact his numbers retired and other people's numbers are not retired for the franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And this franchise just retired. It's a franchise that has moved, and it just retired their first number of their own recently, which was slightly questionable.
Oh, I know where you're going. Okay.
This is Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
The Thunder.
Mm-hmm.
So the Thunder retired Nick Collison's number this year, which, all right, fine. That's okay. But I just want to say, inherited 6 retired numbers from Seattle, who are, one of which, number 10, is coach, more known for coach now, Nate McMillan. McMillan was a gritty bench player, but he's averaged, let me make sure I have these numbers right again. He averaged 5.9 points, 6.1 assists, and 1.9 steals in 12 seasons with the team. I'm going to give another player averaged 16.3 points, 6.7 assists, and 1.8 steals in 18 seasons. That second player is Gary Payton, and Payton's number is not retired by the team. Sean Kemp's number is not retired by the team. Detlef Schrempf's number is not retired by the team. But Nate McMillan's is. So just in case you're wondering, it's Gus Williams, Nate McMillan, Lenny Wilkins, Spencer Haywood, Fred Brown, and Jack Sikma. I think it's more the fact that McMillan, his numbers, he was with the team for 12 seasons. So that, again, the compiling, but when you're only compiling 6.2 points, and you're a gritty bench player, the Celtics are not retiring Marcus Smart's number, I don't think, at some point. It's just weird based off of who isn't retired and who is for that franchise.
I got an interesting one here for you, actually, with that, or a question. So, because I was looking at that too, Collison almost made. I had him on my Excel sheet, then I took him off, and then put him on, and then took him off again. The city of Seattle still owns the Supersonics likeness and everything, I believe.
Yes, they do. That's part of the deal when they move.
Okay, so if Seattle gets an NBA team back, which could happen, do they then? So then they revert back. So then they get that history back. So then presumably, all those retired numbers are then back for theirs, and then Oklahoma City doesn't have that anymore. I would imagine they would leave that behind.
that's got to be the case. Because, the answer is I don't know. Because when the Jazz moved to Utah, Maravich's number went with them, and then the new team retired Maravich. But I think that's different. I'm not exactly sure. Because the only other thing I can think of is when that would have been similar with the rights is when the Browns moved to Baltimore, and they had they kept the rights to everything, and the Baltimore is essentially an expansion franchise while one other franchise folded, and then they got to take everything, but Baltimore was entirely unencumbered, which is slightly different. So I don't know. I mean, I imagine you're right, but I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Well, one interesting thing, too, if you look at the Arizona Coyotes, they've got the retired numbers of former Winnipeg Jets, who now are the Jets again, can even use their own logo and their old logo and throwbacks. But they don't have, Dale Howardchuk's number retired. The Coyotes do. Which I always found interesting.
Yeah.
I always thought, okay, because the people of Arizona really want to keep up that rich heritage of the people of Winnipeg that they know so well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that may just be the fact that the NHL does everything worse than pretty much every other league, except that's not true because all the leagues do that.
And you know what? You answered it right there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Because a lot of the other ones, like Hartford's never getting a team again.
No.
But what happens if Quebec City gets a team again, which is not ridiculous. They have an NHL-ready arena. And who knows what happens there.
It's very possible.
City gets it. Do they get Guy Lafleur back? Or with Guy Lafleur, wait, did Lafleur even play for them? Or am I just thinking that because they had Lafleur Lee and Guy Lafleur?
No, he did. He came out of retirement and then played for the Rangers and the Nordiques for a bit.
Oh, okay. But I mean, if we have new Nordiques, which I'm all in favor of, by the way, we need more Canadian hockey teams. It's interesting. I don't know. That's a good question.
Let's see. So because the Colorado Avalanche, they've retired Bourque, Adam Foote, Peter Forsberg, Milan Hedjuk, Patrick Waugh, Joe Sakic. Yeah, so none of the people who were really. Oh, okay. Yeah, here we go. Former retired numbers. So that they had, because they have their own, and then they were unretired when they moved. So that of Peter Stastny, Michel Goulet, Mark Tardif, and J.C. Tremblay. Okay.
So that seems to indicate that the Avalanche, if Quebec ever came back, it's like, hey, you want your numbers back. Mm-hmm. If you have former retired numbers.
Yeah, so it says former retired numbers. So they didn't even consider it. They didn't acknowledge it at all.
Okay. Kind of a dick move, but now nice. So. Well, I mean, who the Hurricanes have retired? Do they have? I know they have Glenn Wesley.
Oh, it's got to be Ron Francis.
Brindamore was there for a little bit.
Oh, Rod Brindamore, Ron Francis, Glenn Wesley.
Okay. Yeah. So, because there was one of the guys on my list was a Whaler who had his number unretired, and then had it re-retired for Wesley when they were in Carolina.
So I want to finish off. I got one here that it's sort of like thanks for nothing. Another form, one that never played. Number 59, Atlanta Hawks.
That one I don't know.
Yeah, because Kasim Reed, former mayor.
Oh my God! Is he the one who brought the Olympics there?
I don't believe so, because he was just. They said he was. I was looking. He just finished being a mayor in 2018, and he got in at 2010. So I'm assuming he had little to nothing to do with the Olympics. He one of his early things though was working to get the Confederate flag removed and the state of Georgia flag, which kudos on him for that one.
Yeah, I guess, but that's weird even for a weird franchise like the Hawks.
Well, but here's the other funny thing, right? So number 59 is not even a number that's issued in the NBA.
Yeah, the Celtics will get there in 3 years. But yeah,
probably. Yeah, but because for those who aren't aware, it's all about what the ref can sort of like flash up with their hands.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no possibility of anyone joining the Hawks and taking, you know what, I really want that number. So thanks, I think.
Those rules have been changing somewhat because there have been 99 and at least for the Celtics and a few others out there that never existed before. I remember Shaq was the first one to wear 36 for the Celtics. And now 36 is a common rotation. But yeah, it's because most NBA numbers are 0 or double 0 with Parrish through 55. Just because it's easy for the refs to call fouls.
So in case anyone's wondering, he's 59 because he's the 59th mayor of the city. So apparently he did a lot of work, community work with the Hawks, and that's fantastic. But thanks, but
the Hawks are too good a franchise to be doing that. The Hawks are too historic. I mean, they're too historic a franchise to be doing that.
Well, yeah, because it's essentially a Bush League move. Oh, I don't know if you know this. In Toronto, there was a bit of a backlash because there's a banner put up for Bon Jovi for selling a couple concerts out. So in the Air Canada Centre, there's a banner for Bon Jovi, which kind of coincided around the time he was sniffing around trying to buy the Bills and maybe move them to Toronto. That couldn't have had anything to do with it.
No. Can you imagine what would have happened if the NFL had just allowed Trump to buy the Bills?
No. Well, they wouldn't be in Buffalo.
He wouldn't be involved in politics, I don't think, if they just allowed him to buy the Bills.
That might have solved one problem.
Yeah. Of course, they now probably be in... Well, he would have bankrupted them. But anyway. All right, I think we got it covered. So what do we talk about next week?
Next week, well, we could almost stick with the same topic in the 10 that should be retired, who haven't been.
Well, we can do that too. I mean, that's a good one. I also, one of the things I talked about or touched on last week was the nominating committee that they came up with. The alternate nominating committee came up with their 16 acts you can vote from. I thought they did a pretty good job, although there's still no Patti LaBelle nominated in that room at all, which drives me crazy. And the B-52s made the final list, which you know my opinion on that novelty act.
I do.
But that might not be bad to go through and just see how they did and what you think of the nominees and what you think of the list. Because I already voted for my 5 off of what they had.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that with Alex Voltaire and the guys over at Future Rock Legends mostly.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good group that they put together.
That's something we can always keep in the hopper for a future week till we don't have anything else to talk about.
Yeah. So. And, essentially creating our own little committees. I mean, that was really the genesis of one of his tweets from Alex.
Yeah, sure.
And just taking that to the next level. Vinny will be in for the football one we'll do, for sure.
Excellent.
Yeah, so I talked to him about that today. So now my goal in the next couple of weeks is to try and just expand my social network to get, a decent cross section for people of this. That's a little bit more diverse than what I could come up with initially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it'll be good. Have you talked to your brother?
I wasn't able to get a hold of him this week. I've sent a message, but I was on hold of him this week.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, because
he's a busy man.
Oh, no doubt. I, however, live on a beach, sort of, near it. Well,
yeah.
It's a small island.
A little bit different.
It's a small island. Anywhere you live here, you could pretty much walk to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
Which we're now allowed to go to from 4:30 to 6.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Well, it was 6 to 9 before. Now it's 6 to 9 and 4:30 to 6.
Okay. Well, it's improving. I want you out there in the heat of the day. That's when the COVID passes more frequently. So.
Well, they've done a really good job here, but God, I'm so tired of talking about COVID.
Yeah, no kidding. That's part of the problem where I think we're about to have. People are just so tired of it; they're not doing what they should be doing.
No, they're really not. And it's really a shame. I can only speak really for this island, and then when I talk to other people, but even then, it's sort of everyone's got a different experience back in Canada, and then yourself. But like here I'm amazed just how well everyone's responding to this, and how effective really the government here has been sort of cracking down on anyone that's sort of like violating that. I mean, like I was saying, I think last week to you, I mean, like 80% is my guess on how many times I see people out with masks just when I'm driving. When it's at the grocery store, which I got to go to tomorrow, it's mandatory. You don't have a mask, you're not getting in.
Mm-hmm.
No ifs, and or buts about it.
That's because the government is trying to control you all, according to what I've read on Twitter. So,
well, the worst thing for this island is to get a big outbreak. I know the Dominicans gotten hit the worst out of all the Caribbean islands, but not so much where I think it's going to be on anyone's radar. But if you have a giant outbreak and we're dependent on tourism, I say we like I'm a Bajan, but I feel honorary. But we're so dependent on that. So you have to. And also, if we have a big outbreak, where the hell am I going to hide? I can't even fly out.
Right. Yeah, no kidding. You just have to get one of expand your social network to people, the billionaires who have yachts. Just hang on to one of those.
There's a lot of docked yachts here. Cruise ships, too, that are just, it's weird just seeing them just right in the middle, not moving. Man, we really ended this on a downer, didn't we?
We did. So I think we should get out before we keep talking.
I think so. All right, so next week...
I will see you next week, and we'll go with the best players who don't have the numbers retired for a franchise. That makes sense.
Yeah, sounds good. Unless it turns out to be a super busy week, which it could. You just never know.
You never know. Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Stay safe.
I'll talk to you then, man.
All right, take care. Bye. Thank you so much for listening. Look for new content soon at NotInHallOfFame.com, and stay safe, everyone.